Hello, I'm Saremy, and today we're going to be sewing the Notions case here. It's got stiffener, a clear front, zippered top, and they can go together pretty easily and quickly once you get the hang of it. We're going to use binding, and I'm going to go over the materials next. So just make sure you pick out a cute fabric. If you're going to use something with a motif that you want to show in the window, just make sure that you center it, about an inch down from the pattern piece. Put your motif down here. In fact, in other words, don't center it up here because the zipper will cover it up. Or you can put it on the back, and just like this one here. Keep your motif back there. You can have a lot of fun with these, and they're really great for using up small pieces of fabric too. All right, let's get to sewing. All right, let's go over our materials here. We need one piece of fabric for the front or back of the Notions case and one for the other side of the Notions case. I tend to prefer the less busy or more solid fabric on the top because that way you can see what's inside your Notions case a little easier. But a lot of people really like the feature fabric on the front, so that's what they see the most often. So it's just your choice. All right, and you also need about 40 inches of binding here, and this is 1 3/8 inch wide. And then for your Notions, you're going to need a piece of stiffener that's the same size as your front and back, piece of vinyl, and it's a little shorter to accommodate the zipper. And then you're going to need a zipper that's 10 inches. And I recommend getting a zipper that the opening is 10 inches because you got to accommodate the zipper head as well. You can see I'm using zipper by the yard here, and if you're using a fixed zipper, like a prepackaged one, it's probably going to be a little narrower than the one I'm using here, so you're going to need to make your vinyl a little bit taller. I would just make it about 1/4 of an inch taller, and that'll accommodate the different width of your zipper. This zipper width right here measures 1 1/4 inches wide, so whatever yours measures differently, I would add that amount to the top edge of your vinyl. All right, and I am using a size 16 needle. It's just my preferred needle choice for most things. And if you find that sewing heavy duty things is a little bit fussy on your machine, I would definitely opt for the larger needle, the 16, and also increase the pressure of your presser foot here. Make it more pressure, and that way it'll help kind of keep things under the needle and feel more secure while you're sewing it. All right, so now we're going to arrange our Notions case. So we're going to lay the back, the outer Notions case. We're going to put that face down, just like this. We're going to make a sandwich. And make sure there's no threads on your stiffener, especially if you're using a fabric that is light in color. These threads will really show through through the fabric, and the whiteness of the stiffener really highlights them. So just make sure, plus the texture, just make sure you don't have any threads there. And we're just going to lay this right on top here. And then we're going to put our top right on top there. And I'm just going to tack this in the corners here within 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Now when you do this, make sure that you keep this back fabric pretty taut. So I kind of scrape my fingernails like this, just make it taut, even if it hangs off a little bit. It'll make the binding step a little easier. All right, so we'll just tack it in a few places. You can go around the entire perimeter if you want. Just make sure you stay really close to the edge. I reach under, I pull this bottom layer. There we go. So now we have our stiffener sandwich. And you can still, decide if you want to be this side up, lay your vinyl on here, or if you want it to be the other side up, just like that. All right, so our next step is we're going to bind our vinyl top edge here. Now, if your vinyl has a right and wrong side, we're going to start from the wrong side of the vinyl. So you're going to put your vinyl wrong side up. And for me, I really like the shiny side to be the wrong side, and I like the more matte side to be the right side. So we're going to lay our binding right side to the wrong side of the vinyl. We're going to line up this edge. It's hard to see the vinyl, but it'll be a little easier once we've sewn a few things to it. And we're going to sew at 1/4 inch seam allowance. If anything, when you handle your binding, just very, very gently pull. But other than that, just don't keep it too loose. And we can trim our binding down. And now we're going to turn it to the right side. And I'm pretty firm, but I'm not too firm. But I fold it towards the right side, and then I'm going to tuck under this edge. Nobody is ever going to see this side of your vinyl, so we just need to make sure that this fold covers this line of stitching that we just sewed. So just go just past that line of stitching right there. And now we're going to edge stitch. You can use clips if you like. I don't recommend using pins on your vinyl. And I don't pull too hard because I'll get torque lines if I do. I just initially just kind of pull it to the front, and then I gently fold it under. Just like that. And you can see that I did fall off. Well, I'm still on the fabric, but you can see that this right here is the right side, this fabric here. So it did go a little past that, and that's okay. We don't really see this ever again. So now we're going to take our zipper and we're going to put it to the wrong side as well. So this is the vinyl right side up, and our zipper is right side up. I like mine to zip shut going that direction, so my head is pointing that way. And this is by the yard, that's why you can see my head in the middle of the zipper. All right, so now we're just going to rest this on top of our zipper. And I like to position this so that I don't see the zipper tape in the vinyl. I just line it up right below there. And now we're going to edge stitch our binding onto the zipper. Usually there's enough room just to get our zipper foot to pass right alongside between the teeth and the folded edge there. You might have to move your head. You probably already had to at the beginning there. And since this is zipper by the yard, I'm going to trim my zipper to match. And you can do the same if you have some tape hanging off of the edge. Get rid of this thread so it doesn't become a problem later. All right, and so now we have our vinyl assembly, and we have our fabric and stiffener assembly, and we're going to lay this right on top here. Now, if you want to add a label, I always liked putting it right here, and you can also put it under the vinyl if you want a really clean look, and you don't feel like that will interfere with whatever you're going to put in here. Now, if you have your vinyl hanging off the end here, that's okay. You can trim it down to match this perimeter. So I'm just going to tack this, and I did choose to put my label behind the vinyl there. So I'm going to go right through all of this right here. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. My vinyl looks a little short and my fabric looks a little long. Looks like I didn't trim off the marker there. So we're going to go by the vinyl. And now I'm really just concerned with not getting any bubbles back here, and that's why I made sure that this was taut across here. One thing I used to always get was this little tuck right here at the end, and that was just because my presser foot pressing the fabric, sliding along, it would create that little tuck. So that's why I've got that really nice and tight. So I get the zipper tape at the top, just like this, and we're going to do the same thing. Now I'm really just going for symmetrical, you know. There we go. And that's about all I'm going to tack. I'm going to get rid of this thread here so it doesn't sneak into the case and become hard to remove. So this is kind of one of those things where if you have any threads right down here, get rid of them now or forever hold your peace. They're a little hard to remove when you have to reach inside your notions case, especially if they're sewn into the seam. So just make sure there's nothing there. And we're going to start from the back side and attach the binding. So we're going to put this right side to the back here. I hang off just a tiny bit. You can make it flush if you like, if you're more confident about that. And we're going to back stitch up here. I don't pin my binding or clip it to the notions case when I do this, and that's just because when we go around these curves, I really like being able to hold my binding, and I hold it a little bit up and I ooch around the corners there, and it helps me keep the binding close to the edge. When I pin it, you know, if you're going to clip it, you're really going to have to clip it, not pin it. I would only clip one corner at a time because trying to get both at the same time might be so fussy. I recommend just trying it without. Just see if you can do it. So we're going to come straight down here, and then as I get to this corner here, I'm seeing a little bit of a bubble here, so that's why I'm going to slide the binding like this and kind of smooth it out like that. I also made sure this little thread gets pushed to the outside. I used to production sew these, and that's why I'm thinking about all these little things, because then it just makes less work in the very end. All right, so now we're going around the corner. And if your fabric and stuff like that was hanging off this edge and you can't really see where that stiffener is, I would have trimmed that down and made it nice and flush there. That way you know what to trust. So, all right, so now I'm just gonna do a few stitches, and then I lift up my presser foot and I rotate this around, and then I rotate my binding toward it a little bit further, just a little bit. Another stitch, and I just sort of walk around it 1 or 2 stitches. I don't pull this too tight, but you definitely want to keep it taut. It's going to be very stretchy because of the bias. All right, so now we're past the curve, and I just need a nice straight line. And then now same thing, I make sure these little threads from tacking it are pushed to the outside. And again, I'm just going to walk it around a little bit. Just like this. Don't pull tight. When if you're going to pull at any time, I would pull in these straighter sections. You can see I have this little bit of a bump there. That's kind of good. It'll help hug the case when I pull it to the other side. All right, so now we're here at the top. Back stitch. We're going to cut our binding there. And now we're going to just look at it and make sure everything got caught. And now I like to trim this edge down a little bit because I'm not perfect. I've got a little bit extra here. My stiffener didn't get cut very smooth right here, so I like to trim this down. Do not trim too much. It isn't like a corner in garment sewing where you need to trim off like this, like just clunk, and then you need it to, so that it makes a nice point. We're not making a point. This is not gonna fold here. We need the seam allowance to fill up the binding. So we're just trying to trim this so that we have a nice even amount like this all the way around. You can see my binding is a little folded in on itself, so I have to kind of guess where that's at. Trim off that little excess there. And maybe this right here. And then this is that extra binding or extra fabric on the right side. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's get rid of this thread here. And this is how it's looking right now. This is the wrong side. Now we're gonna pull our binding to the right side. And now I'm pretty firm. I'm gonna pull and tug it and get it nice and smooth on this side here. And so you can see how this curve right here is a nice even width. Over here, it gets a little narrow right here. You can see that. So what the danger will be is when I turn this under and edge stitch it, we might see some stitches on the inside here of the case. If that doesn't bug you, it's no big deal. It didn't really bug us too much within reason. That just happens. It's just natural. We're not machines, you know? So I like to fold this, and if I fold it just past that stitch line that we just sewed, and we stitch to the right of that stitch line, we are going to 100% guaranteed land on the binding. So you are going to be able to see both sides of this, and that's why I say fold it just past that original seam line there. If you want to clip it, you can, but I'm not going to, so you can kind of see what it's like if you don't. And I am sewing straight through my teeth, so just be aware if you have any zipper heads or stops, or you have a metal zipper, navigate around that. All right. So we have this folded just past the seam, and as long as we stay inside the binding and we're to the right of that seam, we're going to land right on top of the binding on this side. I really like using an awl for binding, and I will fold it under, and then I can take the awl, grab it, and just hold it in place just past that stitch line. So now it's a little tight right here, right? And that's good. That's going to make it nice and smooth. So I just fold it and I sort of tug it in there just like that. And so now it's secure. And I can just pull it with the awl. All right, and I feel like my binding is a little far away from my stitch line here. So we might see some stitches on the other side. This is that narrow spot that I was showing you. So I take the awl and I sort of push it away. Just maybe try to correct it a little bit, best we can. All right, and then here we are at the top here. I really like using this awl when I'm gonna go against, you know, like a sudden thickness like this. I can hold it and not let it push away. All right, there we go. It's looking pretty good. We did land on our binding all the way around. This is one of the nicest ones I've sewn in a long time. All right, so I'm gonna trim this. We have one more binding strip left. So we're gonna put this again on the wrong side and we're gonna hang this off. So let me cut this a little straighter. We're gonna hang this off it's about an inch. And we're gonna pull this to the right side. So we're just wrapping that corner there. Now, when I do this, I want this to be pretty taut. So once I have this wrapped, I'm gonna pull this pretty taut, really taut. Like, it's gonna give you a really nice finish if you can get this really nice and taut. So now I'm gonna backstitch. I don't backstitch all the time, but now I will. And we're just gonna sew this along this last raw edge. When you get to your zipper head, you might have to slide it out of the way. And so then now when we get down here, we're gonna hang this off 1 more inch. Just like this. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna wrap it. And this time I really pull it. So I'll take it, I fold it around, then I pull. Bias is very stretchy. Just like that. And you can see this one's much tighter. I have kind of an arch going here. So maybe we can correct a little bit of that when we do our last stitch. All right, so it looks like on the right side. So now we're gonna pull this straight up. And now I do this little envelope folding technique. That way we don't have a raw edge of binding hanging off. All right, so for this little envelope technique, and you can see how I have this little like lump here happening with my binding? That's because I tugged it a little bit when we sewed it on. And that's gonna help it hug the case when we fold it to the right side now. So at this little first end here, we're gonna pull this up, and now I'm gonna fold this, and the fold's gonna go to the top edge here of the case, just like that. See that little fold? And now that's the only little thing we're doing differently, because some people might go like this. They might just fold and then fold like this. And then what happens is you get these little like potentially raw edges that can sneak out of this binding fold. So we're just preventing that by folding it one time here, this little triangle, and now we can just fold it like normal. So we're gonna fold this down, and I like this raw edge to go to the top edge here, just like this. Just like that. And this is just extra fabric coming from this fold right here, see, because of the thickness. Like this, right? Fold it down. And then one more time, you can see we have a nice little envelope there. And now, if anything, I do this sort of shallow because I'll use my awl to pull this just past that and enclose it. So now I'm gonna hold this with my awl, and I do my back stitch at the corner of the envelope. It's secure back there, you don't have to worry about it. So now you can see I have this right here peeking out. So I kind of cinch that, I pick this up, I cinch that in there, I sort of shove it in there a little further. You can use a pin as well. Sometimes a seam ripper can work. Just be careful with seam rippers since they do have a blade on them. And now I'm going to take my binding and sort of put the fold just past all that mess. And now we're going to stitch it down. I just do a few stitches, and now we're going to rearrange again. Using the weight of your presser foot is really helpful here. Using it like another hand, a helping hand there, and an awl or a pin or a seam ripper or something. All right, so now we can continue just edge stitching this. And again, we just want this fold to be just past this original stitch line right here, which, sorry, it's a little dark, you can't see it. And as long as our needle lands to the right of that stitch line, we're gonna be okay. It's gonna land right on the binding. And even if it doesn't, it lands in your zipper tape, it really doesn't look that bad. All right, so we're just going along. I'm gonna move my zipper head out of the way. And now we're getting close to this edge down here. So when you get about a third left here, we're gonna arrange this little fold here. So now again, I'm going to pull this up again. I pull it from the back here, make sure it's nice and taut. And I'm going to kind of pinch it like this, nice and smooth. And we're going to fold this down. Now, when I get it ready, I'm pretty firm, but then once I start folding, I relax it a little bit. I've found that if you really pull on it and fold it, you'll create another issue. So you need it to relax a little bit, mainly because you have the thickness of the product here. All right, so we're gonna fold that little corner down, and now again, we just fold it like normal. So we're gonna fold that raw edge to the top of the case, and then fold it the rest of the way, just like that. And you see how I did it a little shallow, and you can see my under fabric there? That's okay, I kinda like it that way, because then I can pull it with my awl. And now when I get here, I scooch that in there, like that, just kind of cinch it up there, push it in there, and then I pull my fold over it. Make sure none of this is going to sneak out. And then I backstitch right here. And so now we trim our threads. And we can inspect it. I got a bit of an arch in my notions case, but it looks pretty good. And now, once you have your zipper working, you'll put your stuff in there, and you'll be able to see it, whatever you're putting in there. Happy sewing! Thanks for sewing Notions case with me.